What's up, everybody? Welcome to that new edition of the By the Horns podcast presented by Toyota. And know that Toyota has more all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicles than any other brand. So find yours and shine on. Toyota, let's go places. Cam Smith rocking with you, and you know who is my running mate, Drew Stevens of the Bigs, coming to you once again from the United Center. So you know what that means. One, that it's a Monday night. Two, we're here post-game for the Chicago Bulls, and we'll get into that game that we saw tonight. Very positive vibes for that game, especially towards those final moments. But, you know, it's good to be back in the house that Michael built. Drew, how you feeling, man?
I'm feeling pretty good, man. I'm feeling pretty good. Can't complain. It's good to see you. It's been a little while since I've seen you in person. So,
there we go,
I missed Derrick Rose Night. Didn't get to see it in person. Watched from home. It was still moved. We'll get to that a little bit later. But, yeah, man, it's good to be in the building with you.
Nah, man, we're going to get to it right now because we can't hold off on Derrick Rose Night, dog. That's the jumping off point of today's episode because we had a lot going on last week, not only from the By the Horns podcast with the episodes that we had of our favorite Derrick Rose moments and just what he means to us individually as Chicago basketball players, what he means to the city of Chicago. We had CHSN Bulls insider Casey Johnson on to talk about his favorite Derrick Rose moments and some things for him that always stand out. Talked about the MVP speech that he had with his mother, Brenda Rose, and how in a room of, you know, nearly 100 people that it was just Derrick and Brenda in that room and him speaking to her. Of course, what Derrick was able to do after his first playoff game as an NBA rookie, dropping 36 on the Boston Celtics for an overtime win. And then that next day, KC just walking behind Derrick, not in a stalker way. They were walking back to the hotel because it was a block away from TD Garden, but just watching Derrick with ice on his knees after Bull shoot around, casually walking back to the hotel. No fan, no person recognizing him. Just Derrick living his best life of being a superhero the night before on the basketball court, and then the next day just being an average guy. And you know that Pooh loves that and considers himself an average guy. But we built all of that up and had Tim Flowers on, current Simeon head boys basketball coach, one of Derrick's teammates from Randolph and Beasley Elementary to Simeon, where they won back-to-back city and state titles, and just had him on the Chicago lead and discussing just that friendship and what Derrick has meant to the city of Chicago, to him, to the Inglewood neighborhood, just on so many different levels, the greatness of Derrick. And this is really all off the court, which I love those conversations with Tim. And you saw the features that we had with the Dozen Roses on CHSN, so many different like special features that we had on Derrick. So it was a nice build up, and it culminated with him being honored this past weekend. And so, Drew, for me, being able to participate in those features and tell my stories, right? My moments with Derrick and walking on the United Center court and reliving what he was able to do in his time with the Bulls, the reverse dunk, windmill dunk against the Boston Celtics, the, win against the Boston Celtics again for them where, he was just dominant in so many different ways. It was just like, man, you want that old thing back, man. And it's one of those things with Derrick that he's provided so many great memories. It's damn near tough to pick just one, maybe two that stand out because he has so many that stand out.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know. So obviously I just said I wasn't able to be in the building for that Derrick Rose Night on Saturday. But even still, I was taken with emotion, man, just watching from home before they even got to the actual halftime ceremony with Neil Funk and Stacey King and Joakim Noah speaking the way they did about Derrick Rose and kind of recounting their experiences covering him and playing with him. And by the time Joe started talking, oh my God, dude! I'm glad I wasn't here with you, man. You would have been like, man, what's wrong with you, man?
No. I would have told you let it flow, brother. I would have told you let it flow. There is nothing wrong with grown men showing emotions in the form of tears. It's all right. We're not gonna do that. We're not doing that on the By the Horns podcast, man. If you too thug or too tough enough to show emotions and emotions to cry, then hey, you know what? Take that on elsewhere, man. So I would have patted you on the back. And you would have looked at me like, oh, okay, cool. Cam crying too, so we good there.
That's why you my guy, man. Always a safe space with you, man. No, but it was very emotional, man. I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting to feel that way. I was looking forward to it, like everybody I know was. but just to be in the moment with it, even from home watching on television, just remembering what he meant to the Chicago Bulls and even more significant to Chicago at large. And it made me think back, kind of combining those memories that we have for Derrick Rose, that I have for Derrick Rose, and as we sit here recording this podcast after the Bulls just played the San Antonio Spurs and watching Victor Wembanyama, like it just, I want the Bulls to have one of those too, man. I want them to have a one-of-one type player. Obviously, those two guys are very unique in what Rose used to be able to do and what we see Victor Wembanyama do now. But man, I just want the Bulls to be able to get one of those guys again, because you need it. It's proven that you need one of those guys to be able to contend for a championship. Obviously, Derrick Rose and Michael Jordan are the foremost names that come to my mind in terms of how long I've been watching this team play and the caliber of player that they were. And we saw Jordan obviously lead the Bulls to 6 championships. We thought that had Derrick Rose stayed healthy and he'd be able to be surrounded by the right kind of teammates, that he would have been able to at least get one. So I just want the Bulls to get into that pocket again and be able to have that star, that level of superstar that night in and night out, you know that you have a certain level of opportunity to win a ball game or to advance in the playoffs because you have that guy.
Yeah, man, we're going to have to say some prayers to the basketball gods for that, because the basketball gods have blessed the city of Chicago and this Bulls franchise with some iconic players, and Derrick Rose is that. So when you go back to Friday night, and I was able to be at Simeon Career Academy, where he was just showered by love from his community, the Inglewood community, the Southside community, everybody from the Simeon faculty to former coaches, former teammates, in the homegrown event that he had at Simeon Career Academy, where he played with Brian Orange, one of his teammates at Simeon when he was there winning city titles and state titles. Randall Hampton, two guys that are still a part of his crew that he won city titles and state titles with. Like it was that type of just showering of love. Sorry for the corny pun, but the flowers given, the roses given to Derrick. It's one of those things where you see just the positivity, the admiration, the just pride that was there, that was flowing throughout the entire building. It was special, and they did it right. And not to say they were going to do it wrong, but you have a unveiling of Simeon and new signage that's in the building, and Derrick Rose's Adidas symbol with the D in the middle and the Rose surrounding it all throughout the gymnasium, a hallway dedicated to players that have played at Simeon, starting with the late great Ben Wilson all the way to Anissa Morrow, players that have put that program on a map and continued the Simeon legacy when it comes to not only being great on the high school level, but also the collegiate level and the NBA level. So it was a hallway filled of like Ben Wilson, Nick Anderson, Deion Thomas, Jabari Parker, Zach Norvell, Derrick Rose, of course, Kendrick Nunn. It's just the lineage and productivity of those players and that history and that tradition of the school. It was proudly displayed in so many different parts of the school. So that was really dope to see. And for me personally, having my son there, and we know how it is with Chicago basketball, and I believe I've said this on the By the Horns podcast or on one of the shows for the Chicago Sports Network, is that Chicago basketball, we raise our kids differently when it comes to the game of basketball. Like, we expose them to the game at a very early age. So I remember my first memories of going to high school basketball games or seeing like these bigger than life players like a Ronnie Fields or Kevin Garnett, or even thinking about the King days of a Rashad Griffith and Thomas Hamilton, and guys like Marcus Liberty. Like, I'm thinking about those guys, Jamie Brandon, all those guys that came through at King. Those are the players that, for me, I was exposed to at an early age, and I remember them. So to have my son there and I'll take him to high school basketball games currently now of current players, but to have a guy like Derrick Rose, and he's, seen highlights of Derrick, and he's seen games of Derrick when he was in his second run with the Knicks, but to see him in person and to have Derrick come over and dap him up, I could just see the joy on my son's face. And I posted it on my IG story and on my page of just how that impression, I'm sure, is going to be tattooed on my son's brain, because that's how I was as a kid when I was exposed to these bigger than life athletes when it came to Chicago basketball. So having that moment and being there in that moment, for me, you talk about those emotions, that was the emotion of just pride. Like, it's great to see him come back, give back, and that's what he was doing all week in so many different efforts. Obviously, the Rose Garden is now open. He has a lot of different philanthropic things that he's doing for the city of Chicago and will continue doing, because as he said in his speech on Saturday at halftime, that the old pool is not the old pool anymore, that he's a businessman now. And so I'm sure he's carrying himself, and he has carried himself as that, and he's really been prepping himself for that. So going into Saturday and being in the atrium and seeing how the Chicago Bulls at the United Center set that up as a big just museum of great Derrick Rose artifacts. I hate saying artifacts to say like this is like 10,000 BC or something like that, but like his Randolph jersey, certain letters that he wrote, just all these different pictures and awards that he got in elementary school. It was just so special that led up to the halftime ceremony that was rightly done by the Bulls. So just, I know you're going to say your piece on this, Drew, but just hats off to the Chicago Bulls and what they're able to do to honor Derrick, his family, and his friends the right way. It was a job well done for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I know there's been some criticism of the franchise in terms of, are they going to retire his jersey? Are they not? Why are they waiting until next season to do it? But they did absolutely right by him. And I know we're in a day and age where players of all sports, all types of athletes nowadays kind of take control of the narrative with their podcasts and different endeavors off the floor. And Derrick did this with this weekend. He had a hand in this celebration, and it went hand in hand with how he retired, how he took out ads in every town, every city that he played in, thanking the fans, thanking teams, thanking players. Right. And it was his moment to shower us, shower Chicago, shower Bulls fans, his former teammates and coaches, former teammates of other teams, shower them with love the same way that he was getting it on Saturday. So I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah. His message that he gave, the one that he gives to his son, it sounds like on a daily basis about, do you want to be good? Do you want to be great? That really hit home for me. And it was just a beautiful sight to see. It kind of encapsulated the growth that we've seen Derrick enjoy since becoming a Bull, since he was drafted up until Saturday night, and just the way he, was up there speaking so confidently, so eloquently, delivering his message the way that he wanted to deliver it, and ending it, like you said, with, I'm a businessman now. He was asked pregame about if he ever thought about what could have been, the what ifs, what he could have done had his career not been derailed by injury. And he thought about it for a second, and he said that he doesn't do that anymore. Like maybe, some years ago, he still kind of had those ideas in his mind, but now he's kind of shifted his focus. He talked about how had he not gotten injured, it may not have allowed him to, discover his sense of self, his purpose. Right. And I think Derrick Rose is such a human interest story, man. It's moved away from Derrick Rose, the athlete, Derrick Rose, the Chicago's, son. Like he kind of embodies almost like the human experience. There's certain things, off the court that he went through, certain tribulations that he went through, but I think he came out on the other side better for it, and we get to see that. We saw that on Saturday. Yeah. We're going to continue to see that through, like you said, the endeavors that he has on tap, the different businesses that he plans on operating and giving back to the city at large. So, man, it's a story that continues to unfold, and we're going to continue watching it and enjoying it as it does.
Yeah, for sure. For you mentioned a lot of people that were curious and kind of giving some criticism of why the Bulls didn't retire his jersey on Saturday night. Well, let's just go to Casey Johnson and sending this tweet out, and I'm glad that Casey made sure to reiterate this. And this is a quote from Derrick. And you talk about Derrick finding his voice and maturing and growing up right in front of our eyes in this city that put so much pressure on him. and forcing, in Derrick's words in his speech, saying that Chicago forced him to be great. And he thanked Chicago for forcing him to be great. But this is what Derrick said on, just the criticism of what people felt when it came to the Bulls not retiring his jersey. And this is a quote. You can go to KC Johnson's page, KCJ Hoop on Twitter, X, whatever you call it, to read this yourself. But the quote is, quote, "Tonight is not about that. It's about me giving to everybody that was part of the story, the journey, the good, the bad, the ugly. It's celebrating everyone." So as we mentioned, this entire last week, you saw what he was able to do, and having the at the Tortoise Club, Rose's flower shop, and having people get roses from Derrick Rose. It wasn't like he was sitting back and wanting people to come up and give him an offering of roses. It was like, no, I'm giving you your roses, your flowers. It's the same thing at Clybourne Park, where there was a image of Derrick in the form of roses, where people can go get their roses. So he's celebrating Chicago, and it really goes back to the notion of him being so selfless. And that's what I love about Derrick's story off the court, is that when speaking with Tim Flowers of how when they were younger, they would go to this gas station and stop at the gas station, and Tim wouldn't have any money. And the little money that Derrick had, $2, maybe $3, he would tell Tim, like, look, I don't have much, but I can give you $1 on this. And so it just speaks to just him thinking about we instead of me, that selfless attitude. And we saw that this past week. So that's why for him, the retirement of his jersey, he wasn't concerned about that. He wanted to thank Chicago for, again, forcing him to be great. And that's the dope thing about Derrick, and hearing him speak of just, the self-discovery and the self-knowledge of himself that injury really pushed him towards, right? Because I don't think that he would be the same person if he stayed healthy. I mean, on one side for the city, yes, I believe that the Bulls would have won one, maybe two, multiple championships with the run that they were on with the healthy D Rose, but at the same time, it wasn't in his story. And so for him, he's like, all right, well, this happened and it forced me to grow, to mature. And the man that we're seeing now is one that has been through challenges, through obstacles, through the fire, and has emerged from that and become a better man and have found his voice, right? At a time where he was timid and a little hesitant. And I'm not even going to say a little hesitant, a lot hesitant being in front of microphones and cameras, because it was just a new world for him. And if you speak to people that know Pooh, he's not the same type of dude compared to if somebody sticks a microphone in his face and a camera in his face, right? He needed to be polished, and he grew with that. And so that was special of him really owning that moment in that space at halftime to speak to his kids and speak to his oldest son, PJ, right, of what that message is. And that was Friday night for me, watching him with PJ playing. It was another way of him in basketball form passing the torch to his son, like, hey, you got it now. This is yours. I'm going to teach you everything that I can. My time is done. You can go back and look at tape and film, but you also have your dad right here to teach you the game and teach you the right way. And so for me, as a father, holding my son and watching D Rose talk to PJ and coaching him through the game and celebrating him when PJ would make threes or get and ones, like that is a prideful thing as a dad, no matter who you are. If you see your kid excel in something that they love doing, and it's something that you've done in the past, you have experience in, that it hits different when you're a parent. And I know all parents out there are feeling me on this. So that's, again, just everything just culminating with what we saw Saturday night was beautiful. And so, again, the Bulls will retire. Derrick Rose's #1 jersey is coming next season. So the 25-26 season. Date has not been selected yet, so we're still waiting on that. Speculation on when that will be. I'm not speculating. I'm waiting for the official date, so you're not going to get any, breaking news from me or Drew on the By the Horns podcast with that. Don't wait and find out like everyone else, but we know it will be another special night in the city of Chicago, in the United Center, in the hearts of Chicagoans when you see that #1 jersey get raised to the rafters along with Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Bob Love, Jerry Sloan. There will be 5 jerseys officially retired in Bulls franchise history when Derrick Rose, that #1, gets raised to the rafters. And Drew, it really set up an interesting situation. Saturday night, all of the emotion and, the love and anticipation, because the Bulls were coming off that loss to the Washington Wizards on New Year's Day. And let's just be real about this. Worst loss of the season. And I think this Bulls team can admit to that it was a pretty bad loss, if not the worst loss of the season. So the curiosity was, what Bulls team would show up on Derrick Rose Night? You have a New York Knicks team coming in, one of the best in the NBA, behind the Boston Celtics and the Cleveland Cavaliers in the East, and playing great basketball. So it was like, all right, what are we going to have? Are they really going to come out here and not be locked in and focus on D Rose Night, or are we going to see a Bulls team that understands the moment and shows up and shows out? And they did it, Drew.
Yeah, we saw a mixed bag, I think, maybe in that first half. But
that
third quarter, and I think Kobe spoke to it, the fact that they felt like they wanted to win that game for Derrick Rose. I know before the game, I read that Billy Donovan, the players weren't going to come out to watch. But then I saw some pictures of Josh Giddey and maybe one or two other players actually watched
Torrey Craig. Yeah, Torrey Craig, yeah.
Yeah, so, whereas, another team may have taken that 20, 25-minute break and it may have kind of drained them and it might have been hard for them to get back up. The Bulls just seem empowered to play the way that they did in that third quarter and lead the UC with a victory. I think they went on something like a 41-17 run, if I'm not mistaken. Forgive me, it's hard to keep track because that night was about a lot more than just a game, but
a lot going on.
It was a lot going on.
Hey, it basically was a Chicago basketball reunion. If you hooped in the city of Chicago, I guarantee you knew and ran into about 20 to 30 people that you've known through playing against, playing with, and just watching your life. So that's exactly what it was. So I'm with you, Drew. It was a lot of emotion. It's a family reunion. Y'all been to family reunions before. You know how sometimes it can be overwhelming when you run into certain people and you have conversations and they're like, yeah, you remember this? And I'm like, nah, I don't remember that. I don't remember that, but I still love you though.
No, but they did right by Derrick. They got the win. Kobe and Zach, I think, scored 30-plus points apiece for the fifth time in their career. Yeah. So they had huge games. Were able to get that victory, and it led into tonight facing the San Antonio Spurs and the alien that is Victor Wembanyama. Yeah. I think you mentioned we were talking during the game. I think this is both our first time seeing him in person. And
second time.
My first. It was
actually playing is my first time actually seeing him play like a real game.
Yeah.
The first time that I saw him was last year at All-Star Weekend in Indianapolis when he was doing the Saturday Night Skills Challenge. And I was in the back tunnels getting some interviews done, walked past the player locker room, and it was like simultaneously happening. I'm walking past, Wembanyama's coming out, has to duck down underneath the doorway to, because he's 7'3", 7'4", 7'5", 8 foot tall. But he's there, he's shaking his arms out, shaking his legs out, getting warmed up, ready for the skills challenge. And then he just takes off running down the hallway, full sprint. And I'm looking at my camera guy, and I'm like, what the hell was that? Like, it was like scary at first because it's like, what is that? Mm-hmm. Like, is this something from a M. Night Shyamalan movie or something like that? Like, what's going on right now? It threw me off guard. So I know you seeing him for the first time in person and actually hooping for the first time in person had to be like, dog, this is not real.
It definitely was. He is incredible, man. He's not a perfect player, didn't have a perfect stat line, but the way that he changes the dimensions of the court, both offensively for his team and defensively for his team. I think the first 2, 3, or 4 minutes of the game, he had already had 2 blocks on Vucevic, had him second-guessing things. I think he blocked Kobe 3 times. He ended up with 8 blocks. He was 2 shy of both his career high and notching a triple-double tonight. The way he just changes the dynamics on a basketball court is ridiculous. And then he's got this perimeter game, which, he gets some criticism for with the amount of threes that he takes. But, man, he just looks smooth. And I was telling you that he just looks like a combination of like 3 or 4 or 5 like great players just all bundled into one. It was just fun to watch. And I employ anybody who, has a little walking around money. If you're someplace where the Spurs are coming to next, please buy some tickets to watch him play in person because TV just does not do it justice whatsoever.
Not at all, man. Again, it's when you get past the initial like, okay, he is that tall, he is that long, his feet are that big. Once you get past initially that part of it, then you go to another level like, okay, he is that tall, he is that long, but he's able to move this fluidly on a basketball court and look effortless at certain points. It's like, this is cheating. And again, I've said this on NBA shows before that I've hosted. I'm ready for Victor Wembanyama to hold a press conference and say, you know what? I've deceived everybody out here, and take off his human mask and show and reveal that he's an alien, because they know where in hell that man is human, but he is human. He is real. He does exist. But the Bulls were able to do a really good job in finding ways to attack the painted area, especially in some of those non-Wemby minutes, especially with Zach LaVine, who we'll get to in a little bit, and Nikola Vucevic, who had himself a nice ball game, another double-double for Vuce, and actually passes Michael Jordan for fifth all time when it comes to double doubles in Bulls franchise history. So shout out to Vooch, Vucci May, the Vooch, Mr. Double Double, whatever you want to call it. He gets buckets and he definitely gets double doubles. But they were able to find those moments where, okay, he's blocked 8 shots, he's altered some shots, but it's more so Kobe White late, right? Finding ways of craftiness to score around Wembanyama. And it was more so like trying to duck underneath him and get quick layups up. But then also, too, it was the dunk that will count for sure, because when we challenged it, and the basketball guys looked out for Kobe White, and the timing was perfect, but he caught Victor Wembanyama. He might be the first or maybe second guard to dunk on Victor Wembanyama. So rare category and rare space for Kobe White on that one. But this team scored 54 points in the paint, I believe plus 14 against the San Antonio Spurs when it comes to points in the paint, but also had 20 second chance points. So on top of the effort that we saw against the New York Knicks Saturday night, we saw that same effort, especially in the second half, be mirrored by this Bulls team, and it was special.
There's certain things with this Bulls team, and it kind of feeds into what we saw the last couple of seasons, just unexplainable, just inexplicable. Like, based on tonight, they're now 7-0 in games that are decided in the final 30 seconds, like within one possession. They're the only team that's undefeated in those types of situations. The Spurs went 1 of 9 from three-point land with 6 turnovers and 4 missed free throws in their fourth quarter. Yeah. Victor Wembanyama was a plus 19 in the first half. The second closest Spur was a plus 9. He winds up being, what did he finish? A plus 6 or a minus 6? Like, it's just wacky stuff that continues to follow the Bulls in one way, shape, form, or fashion. But going back to that dunk that Kobe had, that I think put him up, the final score that ended up being 114 to 110. A lot of comedians in that Bulls locker room after the game. Zach LaVine was teasing them, talking about how he climbed the Eiffel Tower. You got 2 dunks on a season, and one of them are on Wemby. Like, who does that? Like, how does that even compete?
Yeah.
You know?
But it feels like the one dunk on Wemby counts for like 20 dunks. I mean, it's like the big joker. Like, bro, you dunked on Wemby. That counts for 20 dunks. That's not just one single dunk. That's like 20 of them.
Absolutely. No, but it was a loose locker room. Everybody was kind of talking about Kobe's dunk. But I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the performance that we saw from one Zach LaVine.
Yeah.
Who in 35 points. I think he scored or had 10 buckets in the painted area tonight. He just, man, Zach LaVine, I know that this new CBA with these aprons are just so punitive and teams are scared to spend money on players. But, oh, my God, man, Zach LaVine, a team would be very lucky to have him, especially a contending team where you're talking about him being the second or third best player. Like, if he's your second or third best player, especially your third best player, you're sitting pretty in my mind. And it's going back to the way that he's played this entire season. We saw him picking up guys full court. I think his first, 6, 8, 10 points were off cuts to the basket, you know. Yeah. He joked himself about how he missed 2 or 3 dunks tonight, how he's never done that in a game in his life. But he came through. We talked about, how were these two teams going to execute down the stretch. The Bulls found a way to do it. And Zach LaVine was a big reason for that. Nikola Vucevic himself knocked down a huge corner three late in that fourth quarter. He had been 2 of 12 on his previous threes before he knocked that one down. So, they found a way to come out on top. They are now 7-11 at the United Center, 17-19 on the season. So, I mean, for them, they had to feel good, and I think we got some of that in the locker room after the game.
Yeah, for sure on that, Drew. I'm with you because you have a team that finished the month of December above 500, winning 7 of those 12 games. Obviously, as we see it now with them to start the early part of the new year in the month of January, above that, right? 2-1. So they're trying to continuously build the chemistry and some of the play that we've seen. But getting back to Zach, he actually flirted with a triple-double on top of the 35 points that he scored, 10 rebounds, 8 assists, only 2 turnovers with those 8 assists as well. So I know that early on in the season, that was an issue with Zach and some of the Bulls guards and turning the basketball over. But you're looking at guys like Zach LaVine, 2 turnovers. And this is more so like primary ball handlers, guys that have the ball in their hands enough. Zach LaVine, 2 turnovers. Kobe White, 2. Josh Giddey, 2. Lonzo with 3, but still it's an improvement from what we've seen before, especially when it comes to Zach and Kobe tonight. And you think about the San Antonio Spurs team with a Devin Vassell and a Stephon Castle, a Chris Paul. Yeah, they're young. And speaking of Vassell and Castle, we know that CP3 has been tried and true. He's been that and done that for a number of years, but still sneaky when it comes to just his thievery of the basketball. But the Bulls were able to do a great job of making sure that they controlled the basketball, especially late in that ball game. And you have a team that is finding ways to win, right, in these situations. I know some people are like, well, Cam, they shouldn't find ways to win because you're trying to keep that top 10 pick. Look, this team, this coaching staff is not encouraging these guys to go out there and just play lackadaisical. It's not happening. Like, they're going to compete. And as Billy Donovan said previously to Casey Johnson and to the media, that his conversations with the front office is that they want to keep the integrity of competition. So if you're out there on that court, either you're playing hard or you're sitting down. It's just that simple. We've seen Billy Donovan take away minutes from guys that aren't getting it done, especially on the defensive end, and then give more light to guys that are getting it done on the defensive end. Guys like Lonzo Ball, who played 24 minutes tonight, Drew. And I know I mentioned that he had a few turnovers, but speaking to him post-game, especially you said we were in the locker room, and just getting his one view on what he sees on defense, and especially on the backside of that defense, is really some impressive stuff. So go ahead and take a listen to what Lonzo has to say.
Just trying to do my job, man. I kind of know where to be most of the time, for the most part. I try to anticipate play. I like passing lanes, stop the ball, get into the rim, and just do the little things, man. The team getting better. We got Booch, we got Zach, we got Kobe to make good play for offense, make tough shots. I'm just really spacing out there. So on defense, I try to take pride to, lead that force down there and just be disruptive. And that's what I feel like I've been doing for the most part.
Does it feel like when you're on the backside of that defense, that awareness is heightened, either more like you're calling out and kind of anchoring things to, coverages and rotations, things like that?
A lot of years of playing, pressing in the back line, heard from my pops. So been reading a lot of steals my whole life, man. So it's very similar to that. Guys are a little bigger now, but the passes are the same. Bounce passes, I try to get there. Blows, obviously, I try to get there. So really just about being like a corner, if you will, a safety, and just anticipating it and just going for it. Do what you got to do.
And also some points that we touched on, Drew, with the Bulls finding ways to score inside of the paint. Like Lonzo laughed a little bit when I was saying, like, playing against Wemby is kind of like you learn as you go type thing because you've never played against a guy like that. So he was just saying that you had to find ways to score, and eventually they did that. So this Bulls team, for sure, the energy and the effort, and that's something that he spoke on as well, coming off of that Washington loss. You saw it Saturday night on Derrick Rose Night against the Knicks. It was the same thing tonight, especially in the second half, where this team understands, in Lonzo's words, that they have to sustain that night in and night out to put themselves in a position to win. And tonight was another example for this team. And talk about Nikola Vucevic, 24 points, 11 rebounds, double-double Booch back in the building once again. So you had a lot of nice performances from guys that needed to step up. And even one guy that continued a nice streak for himself is the big paws on the pup. I like to call Modest Buzelis the big paws on the pup, the famous line from The Wire with Marlo Stansfield and Chris when they're walking back to the car. But another game where he's blocked at least 2 shots, man. You talked to Billy Donovan post-game about Modest and just him defensively and how he's got improved in that area.
Yeah, and Billy just said, he wants them to focus on his attention to detail, the scouting reports, knowing where he's supposed to be in rotation. And Modest, we know that he has the motor. We know that he has the work ethic. We know that he has the want to. So all of this is just learning experience. Every game is going to be a learning experience. Him figuring things out on the fly. It's part of the reason why, there's a lot of tension. I don't know if that's the right word, but just people want to see him play more. And obviously we get that given the situation that this team is in and him being drafted where he was. Like, people see him as kind of the future of this franchise. And, tonight he was able to get 12 minutes of action. Saturday night, he only got a little over 2 minutes. So it was good to see him out there. And again, just continuing to learn the game, to figure out what he's supposed to be doing on this team and the role that he's been given, being surrounded by so many veterans. Billy Donovan spoke to how, it's been 35, now 36 games, and he's sure that, this has not been the easiest process for Modest Buzelis, the 11th overall pick in this past June's draft, and that this coaching staff has stayed on him about certain things that they want to see from him. And he's just going to continue to grow. He's not going to get worse. He's only going to get better from here.
Right.
So, yeah, man, just continue to watch him develop. And that's kind of another theme of the season is to see how he does as the season goes on. We know that he's going to have to get in the weight room, put some muscle on, and I think that his game is going to take off from there because we know that he has the work ethic. He can get to the rim off the dribble, or at least once he puts some more muscle on that frame, it's going to be easier for him to do so. And we already know he's going to challenge whomever at the rim. It doesn't matter. So when he does
he tried to challenge Wemby tonight.
There's no fear. There's no fear at all that he plays with. So looking forward to seeing, his continued growth as the season goes on.
Yeah, man, the Bulls stack up another W, back-to-back wins, 139 points against the Knicks on Saturday night. They followed it up tonight, Monday, as we record this podcast, with 114 points against the San Antonio Spurs. They found a way to win late. I love that stat that you threw out, Drew, that the Bulls are 7-0 in the last 30 seconds of games, in those situations, and it's winning time, right? And Lonzo Ball making winning plays that helped his team, and him getting the defensive rebound and diving out of bounds to save it to Kobe White, and Kobe's crafty layup underneath Wemby to give the Bulls the lead and put them ahead. And then you get the dunk that is one dunk, but it's really worth 20 dunks with Kobe dunking on Victor Wembanyama to call game and say that's a wrap. And it's another win for this Bulls team. Now ahead, they go to Indiana to face off against the Pacers. And remember the last time that matchup against the Pacers didn't look too good. And TJ McConnell looked like an all-star against this Bulls team. So it'll be on the road. Let's see if this Bulls team can continue just that energy and effort, that hustle that Billy Donovan talked about post-game in this matchup against the Pacers. Then they're going to have a situation where they face off against the Washington Wizards on Friday night back at the United Center, Drew. Put on James Brown's payback. And I know it's the Wizards, and people are like, Cam, you overhyping this. It's the Wizards. But go back to that New Year's Day game in D.C., this team needs to play James Brown's big payback.
We know
put on the name.
Yeah, with this team, anything is possible, going both directions. So you're not wrong at all to kind of be eyeing that matchup coming on.
Yeah.
And around the corner, we got who? We got DeMar DeRozan coming back home
Sunday afternoon. Debo coming. Hey, listen. You better take that stuff off. Don't be like Red. Don't be like Red and say, I'm going to tuck mines in. All right, Debo going to pat them pockets and see that chain and snatch it off. Especially like we saw DeMar the other night get that reverse dunk, and Vooch had a nice tweet. He quote tweeted the video of DeMar dunking and said, like, wait, you can still dunk? Like something along those lines. So Vooch got a little comedian in him. So it was good to see that. But we know that DeMar is going to get a lot of love inside the United Center on Sunday with the Bulls when he returns back as his first time as a member of the Sacramento Kings. So some good, solid teams. outside of Washington that are on deck for this Bulls team, the Indiana Pacers. And of course, looking at the situation against the Sacramento Kings on Sunday. But the great thing about this next stretch of games for the Bulls, Drew, when you look at their next 6 games, 5 of the next 6 games will be at the United Center, right? They go to Indiana on Wednesday, and then the next 5 are going to be all at the United Center. So a time for them to really improve that home record that they have so far. And again, they started the month of January trending in the positive way, over 500, coming off and bringing that same energy that we saw in December. So it's all there, man. The team is looking pretty solid, from what we've seen so far. Still a long season ahead, so we'll see how things continue to grow and improve with them. But speaking of improving, shout out to our digital squad and our guy, Kevin Lapka, because our producer, Edgar Perez, who we thought was our guy, would have let us know that we have a new format, a new background with the By the Horns podcast. You see the 6 championships right there at the bottom of the screen. And of course, home of the GOAT. And if you don't know who the GOAT is, then just stop watching the By the Horns podcast. I'm not mixing my words. I'm not going to do this with that younger crowd. We know who the GOAT is, especially on the By the Horns podcast. We know who it is. If you need me to name him, Michael Jeffrey Jordan. There we go. So there's nothing confused about what I'm heading towards and what I'm saying. But then youngest MVP ever, Derrick Martell Rose. You got 6 NBA championships, 13 Hall of Famers coming from this Chicago Bulls franchise. And of course, we have the Madhouse on Madison, where Drew and I are recording this podcast right now. So shout out to our guy, Kevin Lapka, and our digital team for making sure that they show up and show out every single time, not only with the By the Horns podcast, but all the podcasts on the CHSN digital space and podcast, just hub that we have, man. So check them all out. Some great stuff from everyone.
Absolutely, man. This is dope. This is dope,
yes,
man.
Sir. Yes, sir. And how can I not mention the 4 stars representing the Chicago flag right at the top, right above my head, right there. So Kevin Lapka in his bag, man.
All bases covered, man. All bases covered.
Man, that's what we do, man. That's what we do, man. This is Chicago Sports Network, and this is the By the Horns podcast presented by Toyota. And know that Toyota has more all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicles than any other brand. So find yours and shine on Toyota. Let's go places. Bulls stack up another W against the Alien and the San Antonio Spurs. Check out those highlights, especially that Kobe White dunk. Very nice. Very nice. All right, we'll see everybody later.